Welcome back to It's Haunted, What Now? I'm your host, Lainey. The summer solstice has come and gone, which means the longest days of the year are behind us. The shadows will slowly begin to stretch spindly fingers over the ground and deepen in the corner of our rooms. Being secure inside will no longer feel safe with the darkness brushing against the windows. Get ready for the spooky season, with sinister stories occurring in the expected safety and sanctuary of your residence. Remember, home is where the haunt is. Sleep tight. Okay, ready to get spooked? Itchthatneedsscratch puts a shiver down our spines in today's first story about a shared experience with their mother. I was 18 years old and I was alone at home with my mother since my dad worked abroad. One night I told my mom I'm going to take a shower. She was sitting in the living room watching TV. As I'm showering, I hear a loud knock on the door. I asked, "Yeah?" thinking my mother wants to fetch something from the bathroom, but no answer came. Then a couple of seconds later came another 4 knocks. This time quieter. I again asked, "What's up?" but nothing. I put a towel on me, unlocked the door, and opened it. There was no one there. Suddenly, my mom comes from the living room and asks, "What's the problem?" I asked her, "Why were you knocking?" She said, "Me? I came here because you were knocking at the door and shouting. I thought that you got stuck inside." I looked her dead serious in the eye and said that I wasn't knocking. We stood there confused and told each other what we heard and how we experienced it, and we both experienced the same thing. A very loud and clean knock at first, and quieter ones after that. One thing that was interesting was that the lights in the hall that joins the living room and the bathroom were off. I clearly did not turn them off because the switch is closer to the living room, and I wouldn't be able to see if I were to leave it off on my way to the bathroom. We were both very terrified and decided to sleep together for the night, and actually stayed that way for a week. Before we went to sleep, we even agreed that sometimes during the night, we can hear carpet noises in the hall, like someone is crossing there with socks. To this day, I get chills thinking about it. I am so happy none of us live in that house anymore. So just a listener note, we did go back and ask why they locked the door in the shower and felt safer sleeping in the same bed. Because couldn't they see the light from under the bathroom door or the keyhole? And did they look into the house's history? Did it happen again? And they responded back to us. So they said, no, you could not see the light coming from under the door, especially if you were looking at it while the lights are on in the hallway. There is no keyhole because there is just a turn knob under the actual knob that locks the door. European, I guess. I automatically lock the door because anyone can enter accidentally. I also have a younger sister, but she was at my grandmother's house for the summer at the time. Even if I sleep in pajamas next to my mother, that doesn't mean I want her to see me naked. After the incident, I try to remember if I experienced anything weird before, but besides the carpet thing that we kept hearing, nothing happened. Later, it turned out that all 4 of us heard the carpet noises. My dad sometimes checked it out, but no one was there. Maybe I saw some of my Legos move a couple of times when I was a kid, but it didn't freak me out back then. I just paused for a second and moved along with my life. My father said that back when he was a kid, there was another very old house where this house is. Rumors spread that kids of his age went there to mess around and made some satanic rituals for fun. But he said that he knew them, and even if those rumors are true, they were not serious with it. Anyways, it's in the past. I didn't experience anything weird in our new house. It even has a warmer atmosphere. Thanks for giving us the extra details about the house. If there was another home there before yours was built, then it could stand to reason that what was happening was residual, or just a curious spirit wondering where their house went. Just imagine an entity bumbling around trying to get the layout straight in their head. It's hilarious. The next story comes to us from Nancy, who was on a previous episode and wanted to return to tell us about a house in New Mexico. Hello again, my name is Nancy, and this is another story I would like to share with you. So, my family and I moved to New Mexico from California. My dad bought a home here in the city of Crosses, and when he first moved into this home, nothing ever happened or appeared to my family and I. But what's weird is that in time, my parents divorced, my mom remarried, and my stepdad ended up moving into this home with us. At first, we noticed little things happening like noises and seeing shadows from the corner of our eye, but just shrugged it off. Well, time passes, and my mom became pregnant with my brother. When he was a newborn, my mom was awake in her room feeding my brother when she looked up to the bedroom door and saw a little girl in overalls coming out of one of the bedrooms. She thought it was my little sister sleepwalking, so she woke up my stepdad, who went into the hallway and living room, then kitchen, but nothing. He didn't see my little sister, so he walked into her bedroom where she was sound asleep. He came back and told my mom it was nobody, that everyone was asleep. So another time, my grandparents came down from California to visit and stay with us for the summer. Now, my grandma is very religious and has her strong Catholic beliefs. Well, they spend almost 4 months with us, and during these months, my grandma witnessed a lot of things in our home. One night, she stayed in the living room watching TV, and once she got tired, she got up and started walking to the bedroom, when she said she got a very foul smell of sulfur and noticed a huge, roundish, dark shadow blocking her way, not letting her pass. She told me she kept trying, but it kept blocking her way, so she closed her eyes and started praying. Once she was done, she noticed that the shadow had moved away, and she didn't mention anything to us just yet. Days went by when Mom and Grandma were watching TV in the living room, and from nowhere, the back door opened, and my grandma said, "You're not welcome." The door closed, and my mom was like, "What the heck was that about?" Then my grandma started opening up to my mom and telling her what she had been experiencing in the house. Now, my grandfather went through feeling someone whispering into his ear, but he was never able to understand what this person was saying to him. My grandma suggested my mom call a priest and come bless the home. The priest came into our home and right away told us there was something evil in the house. As he started praying, sprinkling the holy water into each bedroom of the home, the aspergillum fell right out of his hand and almost smacked my sister in the face. He was like, "Oh, so you want to play games now?" and picked up the aspergillum and kept sprinkling the holy water. Once he did this, things did calm down for a few months, but after time passed, things would unfortunately start up again, and now they were getting worse. One night, my mom was home, talking on the phone with my stepdad, when all of a sudden, she heard a deep voice tell her, "You're going to die." My mom got scared and hung up the phone. When my stepdad called back asking why she hung up, my mom said, "Are you messing with me, telling me you're going to kill me?" My stepdad was like, "What? I didn't say anything like that." My mom was so freaked out that she didn't sleep that night. I might add that my stepdad worked graveyard, so he was gone all night, and another night, my mom experienced another creepy thing. She was laying down reading when she heard banging on her bedroom wall, then heard our outdoor side door creaking open and closing, then hearing footsteps walk right up to her window and tap on the glass. My mom froze scared and grabbed my brother, then ran out the bedroom calling the cops. They came, checked out the house and all outside, and there was nothing to be found. The side door leading to the backyard had a bolt lock on, which means it didn't open without a key. The cops called my stepdad. He came home and was on alert, thinking maybe someone was trying to break in, but nothing happened that night. Now, back then, here in New Mexico, everyone had swamp coolers on the roof. Those can be a pain in the behind, but anyways, one weekend our neighbor Jesse walked up to my stepdad asking him, "Hey, are you guys having issues with your cooler?" My dad was like, "No, it's working great." Jesse then mentioned to him, "Well, these past nights I have been seeing a dark shadow walking up on your roof and then standing by the cooler." So he figured it was my stepdad working on the cooler, but it was never him. Let me mention this. For many months at night, starting around 9 p.m., we would always hear someone jump onto the roof and run from one corner of the roof to the other end. It always stopped once the sun came up. One time I remember my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, went out there and climbed up the ladder. He looked and nothing was up there, but the minute he came inside, the footsteps would start right up again. He would run out there to check, and nothing. I will have more to this story, and I will write back for a second half on the same house. Nancy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And we encourage you, if you have any other stories to share with us, please send them in. That goes for everyone listening. Now, I would say the one part of this story that really did bother me was that your neighbor saw someone walking on the roof. That is so disturbing. And it makes me wonder, given the area that you were in, if there was maybe some burial grounds. I was just watching something about this whole town that was over a cemetery, and that's just what's popping into my brain. But I'm glad that you're no longer at that house. Armvircan scares the pants off of us with this hair-raising, spine-tingling banger of a story, chronicling a year's worth of haunts, containing everything we fear most. And might I add that Sherilyn, our lovely writer for the show, literally left me a note on this story that says, prepare yourself, because this one is freaky. So, I usually go into these a little blind. I kind of look over everything, but I like to read them without knowing how they end so that I can be scared along with you. So I'm very nervous to get started, but here we go. Armvircan's story. I wish this was BS, but here I am. I don't know where else to post this or ask. This is over a year of information, and I am so overwhelmed. My wife and I had been living in our current apartment for a while now, since March 2023. I work in a nearby hospital, specifically in acute psychiatry, and before that, the emergency department. I want so badly to say all of this is anxiety, stress, or even the beginnings of schizophrenia, but I don't think there's a psychiatric explanation for this. Our living room sits in front of a long hallway with a corner at the end of it. The couch looks down this hallway. The hallway has no windows or anything in it. It's completely bare. This hallway is also the bane of my existence. Since moving back in March of last year, I would see and hear things in the apartment. This is not unfamiliar to me, as when I was young, I would see things in the corners of my eye due to untreated anxiety. This is the explanation I gave myself for months. The things I saw and heard gradually became more extreme. One such example being that I frequently saw a pale woman with long, thin hair in the hallway, peeking around the corner, completely still. She became more and more vivid, and I saw her night and day. Not once did I mention her to my wife, until one night in June, where she began to move while we sat on the couch, looking down the hallway. I told her that I must be exhausted because I saw a woman in the hallway. She calmly brought me into our bedroom and shut the door. Other things that happened around that time were more tame. Doors opening and closing by themselves, heavy footsteps following me around the house, whispers of my name or my wife's behind me. I was under the impression that I alone experienced these things and that they could be explained by the wind and noises in the building. Until July of 2023, everything fell apart. My wife returned from work and was using the bathroom while I cooked her dinner. From the kitchen, I heard her repeatedly saying my name, and that I didn't need to knock on the door to come into the bathroom. I went to the bathroom and confronted her, saying I was far from the bathroom. She went pale, insisting that I was lying and that I was outside the bathroom door. I asked her if the sound of me cooking could have sounded like me knocking, and I went to the kitchen to demonstrate, only for her to say it was clearly knocking. She broke into tears, and when I asked what was wrong, she brought me into the living room and showed me her phone. On her notes app were months and months of things she had seen and heard, along with the dates and times they had occurred. Perhaps most chilling of all, she had written that she had seen a frail, thin woman staring from the hallway on multiple occasions, dating from when we first moved in to the night I told her in June, and even more recent occasions when she had been alone in the apartment. My blood ran cold as I realized we had seen the same things at the same time. She had heard the footsteps, heard the beckoning whispers of our names. She even heard my voice clear as day while I was away at work, telling her to come here or come see, only to realize that my voice was coming from the dreaded hallway. We agreed not to keep any information from each other regarding unexplainable happenings in the apartment. Our most stupid decision, however, lies in a few items we brought into our house that summer. In late July, we bought a stupid vintage photograph of JFK from the thrift store. It seemed innocent enough. We needed decorations for our walls, and we were both drawn to it. I will revisit this. That August, we also visited her parents and brought an old clown doll. Cliché, I know, from her childhood home in Florida. This clown doll's name was Pierre. My wife had him for a while. She bought him from an antique store. He was a wind-up doll, and sometimes made music without being touched. She assumed he was haunted or something, but I called it superstition. I honestly felt weary about the clown while we were in Florida, considering the things still happening at home, and my wife felt sorry for me and said we didn't have to bring it home. I don't know what came over me. Before we left, I suddenly grew attached to the doll, demanding that we bring Pierre home. I felt a great amount of affection for the doll. My wife was confused but allowed us to bring it home. Things continued to happen around the house once we returned. Doors would swing open, doors would be found unlocked or locked when they weren't before. We both still saw the woman occasionally and paid her no mind, trying to keep focus on staying calm. Pierre would also turn in his spot on the windowsill when we weren't looking. Great, right? On September 2nd, 2023, my wife and I returned from a night out. It was pitch black in the apartment. My wife locked the door behind me as I stepped into the living room to turn the lights on. What I saw made me furious. I asked my wife if she thought what she did was funny. She was obviously confused, asking what I was talking about. I pointed tearfully down the hallway, and where the frail woman usually stood, sat Pierre. My wife froze. She began to sob. I knew then that she wasn't messing with me. I stomped down the hallway and grabbed Pierre from the floor. The doll began to make a terrible screeching sound, a noise I had never heard the old wind-up clown make. I ran outside with the doll and threw it as hard as I could into the dumpster. I returned inside, shaken. We stayed up all night. 2 days later, we got a cat in an attempt to lighten the mood in the house. The first thing the cat did upon arriving home with us was walk to the hallway's corner, where Pierre had sat 2 nights before, and she began to meow at the wall. One day after this, on September 5th, my wife and I got into a car accident that left her bedridden for a week and with back issues that had never quite resolved. As months passed, things somewhat calmed around the house. The apartment was never completely normal. We still heard whispers and footsteps. The woman made less frequent appearances once we got the cat. We decided on January 10th, 2024, to throw the JFK picture out. It didn't fit our house anymore, and frankly, it was creepy. 1 day later, my wife slipped on ice alone in the parking lot. She suffered a severe concussion. The doctor in the emergency department said if she had hit her head any differently, she would have been in critical condition. I'm making the post right now sitting on the couch, staring at the same freaking woman in the hallway. My cat is next to me, staring nervously down the hallway. My wife is asleep. She doesn't need to know that I see her as often as I do. I don't know what to do. None of this is fake. I really wish it was. There's more, but I can't make this post any longer than it already is. By the way, if anyone wants to see the JFK photograph, I have a picture of the night we got it. The eyes look weird. The unholy squeal I made after reading about Pierre's appearance in the hall was quite embarrassing. I can't even shake off the major ick and bleh I feel after this entire story. You are definitely not crazy, especially when you have another person to corroborate your experience. I don't even want to theorize what could be happening in your apartment. I really just want the spooks to stop for you. So what I would recommend, obviously, is that anytime you bring anything that is not brand new and you're buying it from a thrift store, is to charge it. You can charge it in the moon, or you can cleanse it with some Palo Santo or sage that's responsibly sourced. Something like that. Like, if you're religious, use your holy water, whatever. Like, just make sure that it comes to you clean of all of those nasty little spirits. Well, that does it for this episode. Unless you're an Apple subscriber, in which case, stay tuned after the credits where you'll hear 2 additional stories as a special treat. If you'd like to submit your own personal spooky tale to be read on the show, head to hauntedpod.com and click on the link to submit your story. You can also email me, hauntedpod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice. It really does help. You can find us on Twitter, for now, at podcast_haunted, Instagram at It's Haunted What Now, or at hauntedpod.com. Production assistance by Jesse Hawke, writing assistance by Sherilyn Reyes. The official composer and audio smith for the show is Neeks at We Talk of Dreams. Check him out on Twitter at We Talk of Dreams or wetalkofdreams.com. Until next time. Did you hear that? Our first bonus story comes from Awkward Audience 2, about someone or something extra living in their home. I just wanted to share after seeing so many stories on TikTok. This is just one of my encounters throughout my short life so far. I've had many encounters before this and after this. A little background info. 2 years ago, me and my family moved across states and moved into my current home. We usually have a lot of people in our house, and my family is usually outside on the porch. The day we moved, some family was supposed to be flying back to the state we moved from. I was getting home from school and was walking through the door. My mom was walking past her room, and I called out to her. She didn't answer me, so I just brushed it off because she has pretty selective hearing. My dad was outside smoking, so I went outside and gave him a kiss and a hug and let him know I got home. I sat down and told him I saw my mother walking into her room and joked that she ignored me. My dad gave me a confused look and told me she was at the airport dropping people off. I thought he was joking with me and laughed, saying she probably forgot something and was just getting it. I pulled up my phone to look at her location to, prove she was here, and it said she was 45 minutes away at the airport. My dad looked at me weird and said, "I told you so." But the thing is, my mom is kinda short. My sisters and I are a couple inches taller than her, but she also dyes her hair like an orange color. One of my sisters has black hair, and the other one is like a dirty blonde, so no one really looks like her, and I wouldn't mistake them for one another. The real kicker of this story is that a week ago or something, we were talking about ghost experiences in a group of me, my dad, and my mom. I retold my story, and my dad got this look on his face. He makes that face when he doesn't want to say something scary. I pressed him on it, and it turns out something similar happened to him. My dad's from Morocco, and his mom visits from time to time in the States. One time, when she was supposed to be in Morocco, he saw her walking up the steps to go upstairs. He was home alone. Me and my sisters were at school or work, and my mom was at my aunt's house. He chills on the couch a lot, and from sitting where he usually does, you can see the top portion of the stairs in our house. He, being the man he is, walked up the steps after he saw that she disappeared upstairs. He gets upstairs and sees her walk into the room that she would use when she lived with us. My dad walked into the room, and obviously, no one was there. So apparently we have an entity that likes mimicking others. Oh, and I saw my mother completely solid. It looked like my mother, even down to wearing what she wore that morning. Okay, I'm glad to hear you were able to identify what was happening in your house on your own, instead of having to live in fear and confusion like many others have to. While that's creepy as heck, as long as it's not causing problems or being a negative entity, I say enjoy having a second mom or grandma. Mohammed tells us our final, wholesome bonus story. A bit of a weird story I just learned about last week. I'm 26 years old and asked my parents why I'm the only one out of my siblings that knows Urdu, the Pakistani language. We all know our parents didn't teach us, and they barely speak Urdu around the house unless they're talking to family overseas. But even that didn't happen with regularity enough that I would have picked it up. My mom said my great-grandpa taught me, I said, I don't remember him. She said he died slightly before she was born. Apparently, when I was around 2 years old, I had an imaginary friend named the same thing as my great-grandfather from my mother's side. He had a fairly unique name, and growing up in America, I am sure I never heard that name anywhere else before. My mom said I would talk to him in English, and he would speak back to me in Urdu until I learned and I was near fluent by the time I was 3. I don't remember any of this. After I found this out, I had a dream last night where I got to meet my great-grandfather, and he explained to me that he taught me Urdu because he was tired of watching all of his family lose their culture. I tried speaking back to him and was speaking in Urdu in the dream, which has never happened before. I promised him I would try to learn more about my culture and asked if he wanted me to tell his family anything from him. He mentioned my youngest uncle by name and asked me to tell him not to ride his motorcycle too fast, since that's how his dad died. I woke up a few hours ago and asked my mom how her dad died. She said he was in a motorcycle accident. He was driving too fast and slid under a garbage truck. I immediately called my uncle in Pakistan and told him not to drive recklessly and that his grandpa came to me in a dream and explained that to me. I don't know what's going on or how or why this is happening to me, but it's weird and intriguing. I am so confused and simultaneously amazed. I want to be able to learn more from him and talk to him again, but don't even know how I would go about it. First of all, that is an amazing story, and I'm glad your great-grandpa was doing that for you. I love the idea of our ancestors coming back to keep us in the culture and keep it alive. Now, to talk to him again, you could try lucid dreaming, and while it's not a foolproof method, you never know what will happen unless you try. We would love to pass on any other recommendations we hear from listeners.